Mr. Pablo Herrera, can you please tell us how you got to Big Bang?
Yes, we are here in Dallas, Texas with Big Bang, the event of big picture learning, and we are here with two creators covering the event. So there are 3 days full of activities around education and real world learning.
Can you please tell me about your background, like what you do, where you're from?
Yeah, my background is I come from Argentina. I was born there and I lived there until I was 26. And then I moved to Spain and lived there for 13 years. And then finally I moved to New York in 2013, I believe, and living there since I moved to the United States. My background basically is in college. I went to the architecture school. I did industrial design. And just after my graduation, I moved to Spain, but I quickly understood that for me, like exercise, like I do as a industrial designer, wasn't like a kind of enough. So I started exploring other things. I did a master's degree in arts, and then I did a documentary as a thesis. With that, I discovered media production. I started working in media, and then after that, I always was like a very entrepreneur, like a trying to look in different things, and trying different paths. And one day, when the digital cameras were in the market, just appeared in the market, that was before the mobile phones incorporated a camera, I started creating movies with those devices, those digital cameras by myself. From that, I say, okay, cool, we can create a festival to encourage just the common people to create movies, right? So, and that was 20 years before TikTok. That is what TikTok is doing right now. And that was the same year that YouTube was launched in 2004. It was very successful. It was very successful in Spain, in Latin America. And then the city council saw the project and they told me, hey, listen, do you want to come to the public schools and use these devices to teach filmmaking with the students? And I say, okay. And that was how I started my career in education and with young people.
Do you think something from like your home country, Argentina, or like traveling to another location such as Spain and then your journey back to New York kind of like spiked this interest towards like media and creator?
Well, I think that I never was a guy made for just only one thing, and that means everything. Made not for only one thing, nothing for professional life, and also for living in different places. I think that right now, since I'm living in New York, maybe it's a little bit particular because New York, it is all the world in one place, right?
Yeah.
That is my match with that city in particular, right? But every place that I lived taught me something, and that culture, I absorbed something from that culture. Like, for example, curiosity and be like the guy that tried to solve everything from Argentina is a culture like, with whatever you have, you fix something. And then from Spain, the cultural life, right? They have a very, very strong sense of involve young people in cultural activities, like film festivals, music festivals, all those other things. And I learned a lot from that, and how also the public government appreciate those things. And then from the United States, the entrepreneurship spirit, right? And also the business side, right? Because in Spain was like a very cultural thing, but also very sustained by government or grants, all those sort of things. And here in the United States, I learned how to create a business without having to be dependent on a grant, on those sort of things, right? I came to the United States with 39 when I was 39. Right? And I came with nothing, as I went to Spain with $1,000 at the time on my pocket. And when I was 39, I just left everything in Spain. I say, okay, I want to try something completely different. Learn English was one of the things that I really, really wanted to do. And because I was living at that point with 39 that I didn't speak English, and I felt like short in my life with many things. And I took the risk, and it was very, very difficult, but I got it, and I don't regret. So again, I believe that when you are traveling, living in different places, you enrich your life. So I always encourage young people to do it as well. Never live only once in your country and that's it, because the war is bigger than that.
How do you both, from Teens Media Network and being at this event, Big Bang, how do you think it combines these diverse cultures for these students to learn?
Well, here big picture learning is something that is not only here in the United States, it's studied here in the United States, but it's a concept, through the experiential learning that is all around the world, right? So the good part for me is having the possibility to be in a network that have the same vision regarding education that I have, right? That is just use the real world to learn things. So, and here in this event is super diverse. There are people from all over the world, and I really enjoy it because I feel like at home.
Taking what you learned from this event and all these conferences, what is one thing that you can take to tell kids about, especially regarding this idea of having titles on them or like a label? What can you take from this event to teach them about not caring about these titles and pushing beyond it?
Yeah, I think that there is a very important thing here, because we really, as society is very, very pushing us in make decisions from very early ages, right? Which is a little bit complicated because when you are 17, 18, even 20, in your 20s, you don't really know what you want to do. But the society is pushing you to pick something, like a decide. And for me, it was always a struggle to try to explain to people in the labor market that I'm not fitting in any of the boxes that they were expecting. For example, in my case, I love creative things, right? But even in the creative things, you have to decide if you want to be a photographer or if you want to be a filmmaker or a graphic designer, right? And for me, I always love to be a little bit of all those things, right? So if you are like that, the system will have the tendency to punish you, because a company, an organization, they always look for people that they follow the standards and the rules, and it is, right? But the good thing is that you can break all those things, especially because right now in the creative industry you have possibilities. Then if you can make a life by yourself right now in your 20s by becoming a YouTuber, that is totally fine. 20 years ago that didn't exist, right? Possibilities like that. So I believe that for that reason I'm super excited about the future, because I think, and connecting with the things that you say at Big Picture Learning at the Big Bang event right now, these sort of events are giving us, to young people, the possibilities for them to explore different paths without having to label anything specifically. And then, going back to an idea that I mentioned today, I think that educational should be right now more about creating spaces where young people, or not even young people, but also adults, can discover what they are capable of, and not just define themselves because they believe it okay, I want to be a graphic designer and that is what I came here to do, right? I think that if you enter a blank canvas, and you achieve something that you were not thinking capable of, that is the best gift that you can give to someone. Connected with the real thing, those digital cameras that I mentioned at the beginning, for me, that allows me to discover something that I was not capable to do it. Because I thought, no, for me to be a filmmaker, I had to go to film school. I didn't. The only thing that I need was the accessibility to a camera, to a device, to the technology. From that point, you can start telling stories, right? Then, you can go to the film school and refine and whatever. Those places are there and are right. But I think that the best part is when you find that place that is spot on you, say, I never thought that I can do this, right? Yeah. And that makes you move forward and discover and keep discovering things. And I think that should be education, more than telling you, okay, you have to read this book and memorize things. Artificial intelligence, I think that is actually helping us to make a shift on that, because many of the things that you were before at school learning, right, like the system of memorizing things, now artificial intelligence do that for you, right? Yeah. You don't need the lecturer telling you exactly how history was. You can research that. But what we need now is the lecturer helping you use that technology to achieve that result or that level of knowledge, right? And connecting with another idea. I know that I'm extending too much on the answer, but connecting with another idea that is very important. Yesterday in one of the panels, one young girl said about that she is not trying to use artificial intelligence because at the university they were saying that no, don't use, but then when she went to the real world, she has to.
Yeah.
I think that is the disconnection that right now we are having in education. So you're going to be working with artificial intelligence in the future, with robots. Name robots like whatever you want, but your partner worker is like myself in my business right now. I have to create a campaign, and I giving data to artificial intelligence to analyze those data. Before I had to talk with a publicist to do that, or with a specialist to do that. So those things are here, and our work as an educators is open the door to young people to learn to work with those things, not against those things, not to compete with those things, but also not to make young people waste time in saying, no, this is bad, because you have to be a good writer. You don't necessarily have to be a good writer. You necessarily have to tell the things that your boss at work is asking you to say in the most effective way. You can let a machine put the different words and try and embrace that, right? That is not against your creativity. Use artificial intelligence, all those things, and even the educational system to enhance your experience as a human being.
I think balance is really important. Yes, we are heading towards AI and it is making our lives easier, but we also have to understand the cost of it. Because as students, sure, use it for learning. You can ask ChatGPT, hey, explain this to me, I don't understand it, when you don't have a teacher nearby. But using it to do your everyday work, because in school they taught us do not plagiarize, do not use it for any reason. But then I go to work and they say, oh, we have an AI tool to help the workers. So it's like, well,
It's
I
a
was taught
disconnection.
differently. Yeah.
It is a disconnection. I think that school, what they are, the traditional system, they are trying to do is the same thing. Do you remember the scientific calculator that appeared in the 70s?
Yeah.
And I remember when I was at school, in secondary school, that was banned from school, right? And now everyone uses that. So I think that when those things happen, I put in the body of a teacher, traditional education teacher, and when you say, okay, this guy wrote the assignment with artificial intelligence or whatever, it's like you are challenging my level of knowledge, right? And for a teacher that is based on traditional education and is unidirectional education, you have to do this. It is an attack, and I totally get that. But the reality is that teacher have to be updated, right? Students also the system have to be updated.
Yeah.
So it's not replacing your mind with the artificial intelligence. It's to realize that we are right now working with machines, and we have to learn how to work with that and be fast to understand what machines are not giving, right? What is the educational system that have to teach right now or priorities right now that are a more human skills, right? For example, that as all my creators, I say this, the things that you have to learn in school that maybe nobody will teach you is you have to meet a deadline, that you have to have a good communications standards, because the communication standards in schools or the university is not the same to the real life, right? So those human skills are the skills that we have to be teaching in schools more than accumulating and memorizing things or punishing young people because they are researching on the artificial intelligence, no? Like this, so I think that we have to revise a little bit that and improve a lot.
Yeah, within this balance, there's also blame that's headed toward the youth, and a lot of adults will say, you guys don't know much because your generation is based on AI. But we also have to understand, no, if AI is gonna be put in their hands, what else will they do? But then when that question comes in, it's also where you have to know what you like. As a student, like you said before, you only had one camera, and from there you did everything. And as a student, I think we should also sometimes take the step to learn about ourselves, learn about what we like. But the fault also lies on both sides. If you're not given the opportunity to kind of learn and these opportunities, then I don't think it's fair enough for the student to learn beyond. So, like you said, you needed only one camera to like kind of spark this passion of yours and come to where you are. Is there any advice that you wish someone had given you back then?
Yeah, the thing that is, more than advice, I think that I can communicate or share my philosophy on life. That I say every generation only blame
Yeah.
the generation that come. No, it's fácil. It's easy for me as a Gen X blame boomers, and it's also easy to blame young people saying you don't know anything. I believe that life, as a self-made person like myself, I believe that the best, more than advice, the best philosophy that I can share is like just try yourself and make mistakes and find the mentors, those people that you believe that can guide you, not by perfection, but those people that can understand you, right? And then there are different things. As an adult, for example, I can, you know, have more accumulation of knowledge in certain things. I can tell you, for example, Hasi, listen, you have to communicate well. If you cannot go to a meeting, do this, because I'm transferring you how the standard work for you. Don't fail, right? That is the important thing. But it's not about punishment. It is about sharing and explaining to other people, listen, the real world works this way. If you are not adapting to this, you will fail. And it is better for you rather to fail now than do it
Yeah.
in a couple of years when you have a real war, because it's going to be like a much more difficult. So what I would say is like don't be afraid of fail, because failure makes you improve very fast. And then I believe in the intergenerational things. I also learn from creators. I'm learning from you as a young people, because you are teaching me or sharing things with me that for me, it is impossible to assimilate as a normal thing. I grow up in a system that I grew up with analogic things and ended up with AI. So for me, instead of putting the way that you see those teachers that tell you, no, but young people, better they don't have AI because they don't have enough knowledge or enough agency to manage these tools, I would say, thank God they don't, because they are bringing new perspectives. And I want to learn from those news perspectives, right? But that thing, and I always remember when I was young, I remember in my school, I was not a troublemaker, but I always, yes, I was having trouble on my school all the time, because I was challenging adults all the time. They telling me 2 and 2 is 4, and I saying maybe it's 5, right? Who knows? And the adults said, no, they become crazy. No, it's 4, because all this knowledge that we have makes us be sure 100% that nothing is 100% sure. So I would say my experience is experience the life for yourself. There is a phrase that yesterday Alencia said, that is, I believe that well-behaved women rarely change the world. I totally believe that. I believe that well-behaved youth rarely change the world. Look who are, for me, who were my figures when I was a teenager. Musicians, rock musicians. Madonna, she was challenging the system in the 80s. She was talking about abortion. She was talking about LGBTQ rights in a decade where to talk about those things were really difficult. And if I go to the school and I talk about Madonna or whatever it is, music or rock music, they punish me, because they say that out of a school, that people is not allowed to come here. What are you talking about? This is pop culture. We are building through this as a young people, right? So that is the thing that traditional education probably is less that, but I had to deal with all those sort of things. And I was very rebel with all those things. I had really bad times, because adults have the tendency to confuse, to tell you have a problem because you don't want to adapt to the system. And maybe the thing is that maybe you don't have to adapt. Maybe you have to break the system and rebuild it, right? So I would say, again, so just don't be afraid of making mistakes. Do what you think. That moment that you say, I don't know what to do, and you can feel confused, etc. So this is an opportunity for self-discovery. It is not a problem, right? Probably is an opportunity to evolve and to grow, etc.
Pop culture is really a bridge for like uniting people and different cultures. How do you in Teens Media Network like put this pop culture into your work?
I created a TMN because I love music and I love create things and I love to break the rules. And because I think that there is not a youth network that young people is creating the content and saying what they want to say, right? Doesn't matter if it's good or it's bad. They have to have a space, and I created this space for young people to express themselves, make mistakes, but also to be professional enough to create content. And curiously, our audience is between 25 to 45. So that is like, proving that young people are able and capable of creating content that can be consumed by adults, which is amazing, right? That is the other point that I always say that the educational system do that I don't like, that is infantilize young people. They treat them like, or they please them too much because, or create programs that are designed to impress adults instead for self-discovering,
Yeah.
right? Those are the things that I believe that have to be changed, and I think I create TMN in order to do that.